Jarvis, drop my needle.
Hello, this is the hardcore legend Mick Foley, and if you are interested in listening to idiots, you came to the right place. Have a nice day.
Woo! That's an attention getter.
He's a very strange young man.
He's an idiot. What we're dealing with here is a complete lack of respect for the law.
Oh my God, he's an idiot.
You know, of course, that you're out of your jurisdiction.
Personally, I think you're an idiot.
But that's the evidence in the car.
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Always like to keep my audience riveted.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, friends and fiends, and welcome to Free Range Idiocy, the podcast about, well, everything, but mostly just the stuff we like. Loki Season 2 promised to bend minds with the god of mischief doing his best to save all of time and reality. Would he succeed? Would he who remains prevail in preserving the sacred timeline? Would Sylvie stick with that 80s mullet for the entire season? Would Mobius finally get a second slice of pie? So many questions, but the only one really worth asking is, who's going to walk away with this bottle of bourbon for our preseason predictions? We'll run it all down in this episode 146 of Loki Season 2 Real or Jabroni returns. I am your Uncle Todd, and with me, as always, is the man who has been working to control his own time slippage for the sole purpose of eating his favorite steak of all time over and over again. He has been my partner in Idiocy for over 2 decades and has enough red meat lodged in his colon to build a wildebeest from scratch. I give you the man they call Tim.
I am Tim of Chicago, and I am burdened with glorious and idiotic purpose.
And that purpose, apparently, is to consume all of the red meat east
and
of the
deviled
Mississippi.
eggs.
And deviled eggs. Because cholesterol apparently doesn't exist anymore, ladies and gentlemen.
Not
The
in my
man lives
world.
on a diet of steak, eggs, and mayonnaise.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's
And
so
yet his-
beautiful.
And yet his doctor is like, "Hey, you're fine. Go
That's
fine."
right. Hey, the blood work comes back clean, baby.
The guy has stock in a cattle farm. That's the reason why all of his patients are on this diet. He also has a meat market right outside. It's like you have to leave through the gift shop at, like, when you're in amusement parks. Here you have to walk past a counter with like tomahawk steaks, ribeyes, sirloins.
I would explain when I leave why I'm usually picking up, some cold cuts on my way out. You know what I mean? Got to get the cold cuts.
Cold cuts for a person such as you, of your stature? I can't picture you.
Cheeses and meats, of course.
Can't picture you stopping and be like, "Yeah, give me a half a pound of bologna."
No, not the bologna. Usually get a little turkey, a little roast beef, some American cheese.
I cannot remember the last time I had bologna.
I think
that might be a good thing.
Yeah, I think it was probably back in the old elementary school days, my friend.
Oh, no, it's after that. Oh, no, there's definitely been some random times when someone's like, all we have is the stuff that comes in this clear and yellow package, and you all know what that is.
I remember, so, like, we never had bologna a lot in the house. My mom always bought like ham or turkey or whatever. I went over a friend's house one time and I tried, and it was like, I think it was like my first time having bologna, and it tasted amazing to me. I was just like, wow, what is this thing?
I was waiting for you to be like, "Peasants, get this gruel away from me. Why are you trying to kill me?"
The story gets better. So my friend's like, "Oh, let's have a little snack, have a couple slices of bologna." Well, of course, after I have it, I'm like, "Oh, can I have another? Can I have another? Can I have another?" I think we damn near ate the whole thing of bologna between the two of us. And I'm like, I think that was like meant for his lunch for like the week or something like that. So I'm like surprised I even got invited back after that whole fiasco.
And your sodium level was somewhere around 8,000.
And now the genesis of my heart issues is uncovered.
So dehydrated, Tim didn't pee for a week. just nothing but salt. Just vaguely soluble in his veins, just coursing through him.
Man,
that nitrates. That was the only thing that saved you.
Yeah. Gosh, there was between that and all the Pepsi and Coke I used to drink when I was a kid. I'm like, how am I not like even further messed up than I already am?
Well, that's a good question, but all I know is we've been talking now for 3 minutes and we're already gloriously off track, which is wonderful. How are you doing, sir? Let's start with that.
I'm well. I'm doing well. Feeling good. Living the dream. Having my weekly allotment of steaks, deviled eggs, and Brussels sprouts every weekend at the local restaurants we like to frequent. I'm doing well. I'm feeling good.
With the way you described how your weeks have been going, I'm picturing you just pulling a full-on Ron Swanson going in and be like, I want you to bring me all the steaks and the deviled eggs that you have. No, I'm afraid you don't understand me. When I say all the steaks and the deviled eggs that you have, I mean all. Please and thank you.
That's right. Oh, my gosh. Hey, although our favorite eating place had the tomahawk steak back at a gloriously priced $200, which I did not go. It was a 40-ouncer, and I'm just like, I don't know if I want to throw that kind of coin down on just a single helping of meats. You know what I mean?
Oh, you definitely thought about it.
I thought about it, but I didn't want to do it. And it was funny because
the thing is, it was because you were with your wife. Had you been on a business trip, and you could have buried that in an expense report somewhere. Oh, done and done.
And I had a fridge in the room because I got to make sure you know. There's no way I'm eating that whole thing.
There is. Oh, are you kidding?
I barely put away a 36-ouncer. I'm not going to go another 4 ounces.
You just need to learn how to eat through the pain, sir. That's your problem.
Good God.
We need to get you.
What was that John Candy movie where it was him and Dan Aykroyd?
Great Outdoors.
The Great Outdoors. It was like, what is it? The old 96er or something like that?
Yes. And at the very end, Aykroyd's like, if I get a couple desserts down to me, you get a couple free T-shirts for the kids. Because he hasn't. You're like they're telling him he hasn't finished. All that's left is gristle and fat.
That's right. Oh my gosh, that's hysterical. Oh yeah, that's me. That's me.
All right, we need to get this. We need to get somewhat on track here, sir. We
right.
do. I know that we're very on brand for just sidetracking endlessly until we just. One of us is about ready to pass out, but we need to be professional here.
We do.
Professional,
ladies and gentlemen. That is what we are. All right. Do you want to lead us off?
Well, I mean, first of all, we need to get into your portion of the show, sir. So, if anything, I'm going to lead you off, and you're leading me off to lead you off.
We'll usually do the intro into the Week in Geek. I'll take care of it. Ladies and gentlemen, the greatest segment of this show, the Week in Geek.
Yeah, well, that's just like your
tailor-made. Tailor-made for that quote.
Yeah. The Week in Geek.
Feels so funky.
All right, so what do we got this week, sir?
Let's jump into it. Well, it's been we kind of jumped right into it, but it's been a bit. It's been a moment or two or 5 or 10.
Don't call it a comeback.
I think it's been like over a month or so since we've last recorded, and since in that time, jumping into the fantasy gridiron, my fantasy team. Here we are in week 11. Week 11, ladies and gentlemen. 4 wins, 5 losses, 1 tie. I am on the fast road to a win this week. Once again, would bring me up to 5-5-1.
And what would we call that?
We would call that a curse, a hex, some sort of diabolical chicanery by Uncle Todd. I have 4 more games to break away from this hell that he has somehow cast my team into, where it's win, 1, lose. I mean, literally, I'm looking at this: loss, win, loss, win, loss, tie, win, loss, win, loss.
What can I say? It's tough being this good. The refs in fantasy football. You are delusional, sir. Have some more of your expensive bourbon there.
I will. I'm having some Maker's Mark private selection.
I know, of course you are, because you're that
from the man they called him. Well, anyways, so team is, hanging in there. Lamar Jackson has been solid. Debo was out for a little bit. Hey, this week, posting 8 points. Dicker the kicker, ladies and gentlemen. My other kicker was on was on bye this week, so I had to call up, had to tap in Dicker, and he has taken care of business. 8 fantasy points, respectable.
That's a kicker right in the dicker, let me tell you.
Well, it'll be that way if I'm still 500 at the end of the season, or for you if not. So
honestly, I think that would be the good. That's a good name for your team next year.
What the dicker kicker?
Yes.
Good Lord.
That's a kicker right in the dicker right there, buddy. Yes.
Oh my gosh. Well, anyways, that is Tales from the Fantasy Gridiron.
Wow, I love how when you're hovering around 500, this gets real brief. I love it.
There's nothing. I've stated what I needed to say. My team is winning. It's projected to win 164, 152 today, and I got a running back, a wide receiver, and the Kansas City defense running for me here. So I'm feeling confident on my prospects of walking away with a W.
You are worse than Hulk Hogan.
All right, moving right along. Thank you, Shiki. Moving right along. Dune 2, which we are all in on Dune. We were both very happy with the first outing and waiting for that sequel to come out. And of course, with the writers and actors strike over the course of this summer, all things were put on hold related to entertainment and otherwise. And it looks like for Dune 2, it'll be coming out in March of 2024, sir. You looking forward to that? Are you still amped up on the just the excitement, the juices of the Dune?
The juices. I mean, the whole point is that there aren't any juices. That's the whole point of Dune. Arrakis is dry.
Well,
dry as an overcooked piece of white toast. Okay. I actually rewatched the first half of Dune a couple weeks ago or something, and was kind of surprised at just how much I enjoyed just the spectacle of it.
Yeah.
Just how, yep, and the lights have gone off early. Turn out the lights. The party's over.
The Reverend Slick used to sing that from ringside, baby.
We are approximately 12 minutes in, and the lights are already off in the basement.
And your family's sending a message tonight. So stay down there.
Pretty much. But I was kind of surprised how much I just enjoyed watching the spectacle of it. Like, it's just a very beautiful movie to watch.
Yeah.
I felt like the pacing it really takes its time. Even in action sequences, like, it does not feel like boom, 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 boom cuts. Like, it just feels, I don't know how to like, lush.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost in a way kind of luxurious. Like, oh my God, you didn't have to take that much time for that shot, and yet you did.
It reminds me a lot of Star Wars. It reminds me a lot of Star Wars and the different planets that they would go to, because I feel like Denis Villeneuve had
I think it's Villeneuve
created just these very rich visuals, you know what I mean, and really just did a great job world building, like you said. I mean, it's you know, where I mean, I don't remember all the planet names, but when you talk about like House Harkonnen, where they're at, when you look at House Atreides, where they're at, you know, there's Arrakis. There's just a feel and a texture to it that feels very rich and very vivid. And I just remember, you know, at least that was something that struck me with Star Wars, is like all the settings in Star Wars were places that I thought would be kind of cool places to be, you know, Cloud City, or, you know, Hoth, or Tatooine, or, you know, they just felt like fantasy worlds that would be cool to visit. And so, to your point, I agree with you. I thought that was one of the things they did extraordinarily well, was just how visually, you know, just rich it was, and how vivid it was, and it lent itself to building a very rich story that was that first movie.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. I've watched the trailer for the second edition here a couple times, and
yeah,
it just looks like it's going to be epic. Yeah, can't wait.
And I love how Stellan Skarsgård, who I believe was, he was also in not Rogue One, in Andor, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Plays an amazing Baron. You know, he was just phenomenal. Like, he doesn't say much in that movie, to be honest. Like when I've gone back and looked at some of the clips on YouTube from his high points in the movie, he doesn't say a whole lot. He doesn't have a lot of screen time, but when he's there, oh my gosh, is it like impactful, and and he makes a statement in very, very impactful, and I don't want to say in small ways, but for the little bit he's given, it's really outsized what the impact is from it.
Yes, which I feel is a team effort. I mean, Stellan is one of those actors who he can chew the scenery around you with like 2 lines.
Yeah.
And a look. He can just do that. Like he in a way, he's sort of who else would I describe that way? Sort of like a Willem Dafoe. Like the dude is just kind of interesting to look at.
Yeah.
Just interesting on screen, where you're like, what is this cat gonna do next?
Mm-hmm.
He's just kind of something a little dangerous, a little odd about this guy.
Yep.
So yeah, he obviously has brought his portion to it, but I feel like the direction, even the way that the production design has the costuming and the way that they've shot him, and the everything about that character is so fully formed, and that's what is missing in a lot of movies. And you could even say we're going to be talking about Marvel later. There's been a lot of misses in terms of Marvel characters, because it feels very much like they're missing some aspect of this.
Yeah.
Or some aspect is getting shortchanged, and they, not in Dune. It feels like everybody kind of gets their time to shine and really gets the full treatment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Oh, loved Dave Bautista as Glausu Robin Harkonnen, and especially the scene where he comes in and I think it's after House Atreides takes over Arrakis, and he, one of the things I loved about Bautista when he was in wrestling too, he can be very soft spoken, and then on a dime can turn it into like massive intensity. He's like, and I forget the exact line, but he walks in and he says to the Baron, he's like, how can these people take what is rightfully ours, or something like he goes into like a real like rage, and I mean, it's just like, oh God, he was great. He was great. I'm excited to see what they do with him in the next one too, because I think he gets in a little fisticuffs with doesn't he? With
I would imagine,
Paul Atreides, I would imagine. So and then of course the world's greatest name, Duncan, Idaho.
Such a bizarre thing, man. Like I've read the book. I've seen the first half of this movie. I have not seen the old school version of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, whatever, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So funny. Actually, quick plug, Jason Momoa, SNL this past weekend.
A
couple of sketches on that show were hysterical.
Oh, that dude's got good comedic timing.
Oh,
and
he's
such a laid back cat. I mean, you could almost see like he'd be like, yeah, sure, I'm up for whatever.
Yeah, they did like a bouncer outside of a nightclub sketch with him and this I forget his name, Marcel something or other. I forget his name. I mean, he's so funny though, and they were both doing kind of the Latino, accent of what they were doing with letting people in or keeping them out and stuff. And I mean, to your point, his comedic timing was amazing. Absolutely like the whole premise was Marcel was telling his character to let people down easy if we're not going to let them in, and he literally sets up like this stupid story. Like there's a gal and he's like saying, it's like a when you see a bluebird and it's very pretty, and then he all of a sudden he's like, you're a very ugly person. I mean, and the timing was excellent. And then Marcel's character is just like yelling at him, like, "What are you doing?" It's like, it was so funny. So anyway, sorry, we got on to SNL from Dune here, but
that there is a degree of that
cast
of that full commitment.
Yes,
that goes with comedy, but it also, it goes with any kind of acting. Like you're only going to be as good as much as you're willing to commit to the character. Now, some people go a little bit far. I read something the other day about how apparently Aaron Eckhart is not fun to work with because he's a method dude.
Oh,
and of course Daniel Day-Lewis, infamous for being method and staying in character and all this. But I always go back to oh my gosh, I can't remember. It was Sir Laurence Olivier was working with someone who was a method actor, and I was a fairly big name, and was going through all, the method actors going through all this torture and all this, and Laurence Olivier is like, my dear boy, have you ever considered acting? Like, literally just pretend to be that person instead of this whole I need to inhabit them. Like, you're working way too hard. You know? Just pretend you're the person and then shut it off and go home.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to wear the same underwear for like 6 weeks while you're filming, because that's what they would have done in 1843 or whatever. Like,
right?
No, you can pretend and then go home. It's okay.
That's funny.
Anyways, yeah, we're way off course, but yeah, Dune 2. I am bullish. I am bullish. Right. I am buying what they're selling.
I'm looking forward to it. Although I got to go to a theater with some comfy seats, because I got to tell you, when we saw Dune 1, we went to this favorite movie theater of ours, and they've since gone and done a rehab of the place. They've been kind of fixing up their theaters, and the chairs they have now are just wonderful. So,
they go like full on recliner stadium seating.
Yeah, they were kind of like that before, but they had just I think it was just so much wear and tear. That like sitting for the 2.5-3 hours that movie was, like, I was just I needed to stand up at one point. I was just like, I can't sit that long in a chair that uncomfortable, But now we've been back since they did the rehab, and it's actually it's much more tolerable. So I'm looking forward to that.
And that's one thing. Like I've been to one time since the theater that has been closest to me went all recliners, all stadium seating, all that. And I went to one movie theater that did not have that.
Mm-hmm.
And even though the seats were nice, I was like, man, this is substandard.
Yeah.
And think back to like what movies were when we were, growing up. If totally different, but then again, compare that to like what the old movie houses were with like balconies and these rich decorations, and the whole thing was an experience.
You remember the Strand?
Oh yeah, it was gorgeous. I love that place, even though it was falling down even then.
Didn't have any recliners, we just made it work,
No, but this is the thing of the movie industry and to some degree the folks who are like, no, it must be it's a theater, you must go and experience. It's like, dude, then give me an experience commensurate with what I am paying for. Like, I'm getting the spectacle, but there's way too many theaters where the projector has not been tuned in a while. The sound can be a little janky, or even that you're hearing this in the quiet part of your movie, you're hearing the loud part of the movie next door, or the seats aren't quite good, or the place just hasn't been cleaned, or there's a weird smell, or you have people like making an ass out of themselves during the flick that you're paying the money for. It's like, if you really want this to be this elevated experience and that we should all do it because this is the way it ought to be, like, well, then get your crap in order, man.
Right.
Like, start paying people a decent wage so that we get, you get people like who actually are getting paid enough to actually care about these jobs.
Yeah.
And, and get somebody to be like, come in there and be like, hey, no, you're being a tool bag. You're done.
Yeah.
Give me a bouncer at the movie. I don't want a friggin' usher now. I want like a bouncer. Like, no, sorry, Sparky. That's twice we had to tell you to turn off your phone. You're done.
Yeah.
See
ya.
Anyways, that's my little rant. Let me step off my extraordinarily small soapbox.
All right. Well, hey, we're going to move on from the movie houses to the TV in your house, because we got some good news about Mando Season 4.
Yes.
It's ramping up, baby. It isn't going away. People thought we saw the swan song, it was going to disappear. Heck no. And who is the harbinger of this? None other than Starbuck herself, Bo-Katan.
Yep.
Katie Sackhoff.
I'm telling you.
Posting a picture on, I think it's on the Instagram, or maybe that was, is that Twitter? I don't know. I'm not really one to give Twitter much love these days.
Gee, I wonder why.
But nonetheless,
is it all of the stupidity or the just out and out like hate speech? I don't know. Take your pick. Why not both?
Take a pick. But no, she posted a picture with her baby, and what was interesting about the picture was the fact that she was wearing the Bo-Katan, kind of headpiece and had the hair and everything. Also, in this article, so sorry, I didn't quote the last article. That was the Dune article came from avclub.com. This one is from starwarsnewsnet.com, purveyors of all Star Wars and galactic news. Brendan Wayne, who apparently is one of the two stunt doubles who plays the titular character of the Mandalorian, basically bringing up the fact that they are ramping up and getting ready to go now that the strike is over. So there is some confirmation there that filming is afoot, and we don't have a date for when it will come out, but hopefully we're looking at sometime in the mid 2024 range would be nice. But actually, at the end of this article, it says, no release window has been announced. We expect it to roll around some point in 2025. So I apparently spoke too soon.
Well, I mean, if they're just getting into shooting now, that's going to be a while.
Yeah. Now, one of the rumors that was going around was that Pedro Pascal was not going to be in season 4 at all. Apparently, according to this article, he was barely present for season 3, with the stunt doubles doing most of the actual acting and him doing most of the voiceover work for Mando, because of his filming schedule with The Last of Us. And going into this, it may be a similar situation where he may not be on set, but we'll still this stunt double confirmed that he will definitely be involved. So whatever rumors you're hearing about him not being a part of it are falso. So do not buy into that, and do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Mando season 4 is coming, and we are rejoicing in that news.
Indeed.
All right, finally, to wrap up this week in Geek, and actually, kind of leads nicely into the main event that we're going to be talking about soon. But a Loki producer clears up rumors about Jonathan Majors' return as Kang. Seems like every week we're getting a new rumor, a new tidbit of information that Jonathan Majors is out of here, and we got some sort of new villain that's going to take his place. But nonetheless, the confirmation from Loki executive producer Kevin Wright affirmed Marvel Studios' commitment to Jonathan Majors' portrayal of Kang in the series. We only got 2 variants, which is a real and jabroni question we will adjudicate momentarily, where we had both Victor Timely and He Who Remains. Those were the only 2 variants that we got in the season, and that made sense given the story that was being told. But nonetheless, there are still rumors, mostly because screenwriter Jeff Loveness, who was working on Kang Dynasty, the next Avengers movie, has apparently taken a step back and is not affiliated with the project any longer, that there are rumblings. He gone, but we don't know. We don't know for sure. So we have some confirmation based on his use in the TV series, but given the legal issues going on, I think that will dictate whether or not Kang or some other villain will end up being the villain, the antagonist that the Avengers, whatever form, shape they take, will have to take down. What are your thoughts on this, sir?
I think that they're biding their time. They're doing the anti-DC. They're going to do a reset.
Yep.
Jonathan Majors, because so far, and I have not been following this case with any sort of, I can't get this microphone positioned the way that I want to. I have not been following this case with any kind of regularity or having a magnifying glass to the details. It just seems like every time I tune in and catch a little something, it just doesn't look good for Jonathan Majors.
No.
There's always like, oh, well, no, there's video. And then it's like, no, and that video doesn't look good for you. Oh, well, crap. But I think that in a way, and some folks have taken Marvel to task a little bit for it, of like, well, what are you still doing with this cat who obviously doesn't seem like he's that nice of a human being? They're doing the anti-DC instead of going, oh yeah, and the next things, this is going to have nothing to do with what's coming afterwards.
Yeah.
This was already in the can. Like, they had already shot this, unless they want to go back and completely recast Jonathan Majors and somehow massage the story with reshoots you're stuck with him for this season.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, Ant-Man and this, which also makes you wonder, like, did maybe they rush Ant-Man to get out ahead of this, and also then just Loki season 2, and now we're going to quietly just move in a different direction, you know? That's what I think. And I think they were never going to part with him before the end of Loki season 2.
Yeah.
Or they're not going to part with him until it becomes a point where it's like, okay, it's now economical and makes sense for us to be able to reshoot and or rewrite what we've got.
Yeah.
And as soon as that point hits, I expect his ass to be canned and bounced out onto the sidewalk.
Yeah.
I just think that's the way it'll go. But obviously, you know, Marvel has been able to make some decent decisions, so that's why that's where I think we're heading.
Yeah.
You know. But I mean, seems like a good actor, but not a very good human being.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate situation. And you know, we've talked about this a little bit too. They're you know, if we apply a wrestler lens to this, or wrestling lens to this, the booking of Kang as a you know, viable villain has been somewhat questionable, especially given the Ant-Man Quantumania fiasco that took place, where you essentially jobbed him out, and you know, it just doesn't set a very good precedent for kind of the big bad of this overall phase. So I don't know. We'll get into it when we start talking about Loki season 2 here, because, you know, one has to question, was there a bit of a opening here to kind of reset things with who that big bad might be? Because, well, based on some decisions Loki made, Kang may not have a fang in time anymore. You know what I mean? See what I did there?
Yeah. And I don't know if that was necessarily a choice to. Well, then again, I don't know. Maybe there was some sort of reshoot to make that for the season finale. We will discuss it because I've got thoughts and feelings about it. But I think you make an interesting point.
Interesting. All right. Well, we'll find out. And believe you me, when we come back with our next Week in Geek, I'm sure we'll have another rumor to put forth on what exactly is going to happen in this Phase 5 fiasco.
It's going to be Mephisto.
What's that?
It's going to be Mephisto.
Ah, there we go. That's what I like to hear. Well, on that note, and Mephisto, he could be anywhere. This, my friends, is your Week in Geek.
As a matter of fact, Mephisto is creeping up behind me in the darkness.
I was going to say, you're kind of well positioned for him to make an appearance of some kind. All right, now is your main event. So, Uncle Todd is the prior victor from the Ahsoka Reel and Jabroni, so we will see if he can go 2 for 2 in the last 2 contests here. But before we jump into all the adjudication, revelry, and bourbon spending that will happen, sir, your thoughts on Loki season 2? Were you surprised? Were you like what did you think? Did you enjoy the story? Did you like how it resolved? Did it engage you the way that you were hoping?
I gotta say, I feel like this is one of those wrestling matches that we have talked about so many times that many of our listeners wish we probably didn't, where the end of the match feels like it invalidates everything else. You know, I enjoyed the story, the twists and the turns. What was it, like episode 4, where, you know, that was like when, oh my gosh, everything is ending, and I'm just like, and this is the end of what?
Yeah.
So it had me there a lot, and I thought they took some interesting chances, and man, the ending is just, I felt lacking is not even the right term.
Wow, you didn't like the ending?
I did not like the ending. I felt extremely unsatisfied by this ending.
Let us debate.
I felt like it's like one of those deals where, like, where the hell did all of this come from all of a sudden? Like, you couldn't deus the ex machina much harder than this.
Hey,
you know,
do ex machina, man.
Well, whatever. You pronounce it your way, I'll pronounce it my way. Mine sounds cooler anyways. But Lil Snug.
Lil Snug, Duke's X Machine.
But yeah, no, I mean, I gotta say, like up 96.8% of the series, yeah, great. And then we get to that final wrap up, and I'm like,
okay.
That's literally how I felt. It ended, and I'm like, well, is there a post-credit scene that ends? Nope, there isn't. Okay, so that's a choice. Like, okay, so Loki grabs a hold of the thready things and use his Loki power. Well, first of all, he used his Loki power to destroy the temporal loom, which I'm like, this feels a lot like in Superman 2 when Superman kisses Lois and manages, and like through that makes her forget, which was never a power of Superman ever. They just kind of made it up because it's like, well, we need to have this thing happen. I felt like all of a sudden now, like if Loki could have, like, using his jazz hand superpowers can like destroy something like the temporal loom, wouldn't that have come in handy? Oh, I don't know, 1 billion times before this. You know, like, oh, say, I don't know, the Battle of New York. Like here, oh, the Hulk's coming. Here, let me rip him apart with my Loki jazz hand glowy hands. But all of a sudden now he can go up and just, you know, he struts across the thing, and all of a sudden, okay. And then, you know, he grabs the little stringy things and uses more of his Loki jazz hand shiny finger things and starts climbing the invisible staircase in his leather slippies, the stairway to heaven, if you will, and goes to this throne, which I'm guessing is, okay, well, the throne is, I mean, they never made a big deal of the throne that he who remains sat on, but apparently now this is like the throne that's been broken because it's that Japanese thing where they repair it using gold so that the flaws stand out more, and then this is turning gold, and now all of a sudden Loki's cape is this time strand.
It's like the Chimera, you know. It's the broken parts are fixed with gold. And
then he sits on the throne, and now Loki is the timeline. The timeline is Loki, and I'm like, okay, so now we've managed to turn into this. Now we're into the portion of the show where we've turned this into the show, like what was it, like Mike and the steam shovel from our youth when we were reading, and it was like the story of the steam shovel digs the foundation of the building, and then it can't get out. So then they turn it into the furnace, so that, and then the guy who's the steam shovel driver ends up becoming the superintendent of the building, and they live happily ever after. I'm like, so now that's the story. Like, how and just, where are these powers coming from, and how is this even remotely satisfying? Because there's no real explanation of what this actually accomplishes. That now the entire all of time and space is flowing through the god of chaos. Which, I mean, in a way, is really helpful in explaining like the last 6 to 8 years of our timeline. But I mean, I watch TV and go to movies to escape, man. I get enough of this BS in real life. Like, I don't need that to be the solution. Like, oh, the reason why the whole world is effed up is because it's Loki's lifeblood running through all this. Well, just rock me to sleep then. Jeez. So yeah, I was not a fan of the ending, and I am left wanting, sir, and I not like to be left wanting. I don't know. That actually sounded like something that Loki would say. I was trying to channel him a little.
Let me write that down as something we learned in this episode. That Uncle Todd is not wanting.
Don't you
left wanting?
Don't you Hiddleston my Tom, or don't you Tom my Hiddleston? Which, God, that sounds incredibly dirty. Dear Lord, that's like something back in like the 1700s you'd wind up in the stocks for. Your Honor, Lord. The gentleman was Tomming his Hiddleston.
I demand satisfaction.
I demand satisfaction. That's a problem. That's why he was Hiddlestoning his Tom. You know what I mean?
Lord.
You know.
All right.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Know what I mean? Know what I mean?
Say no more.
Yeah, sure.
Seen, felt, smelt, and dealt. All right. Well, sir, I respectfully disagree. I thought this was a wonderful, kind of bringing everything full circle kind of story. Oh, here we go. Yeah, the man with the soundboards pressing buttons. Look out!
Cheers.
I'm waiting for hey man, that's just your opinion or something.
God, that was a terrible Lebowski.
Well, I'm sorry.
Make him humble.
Well, it does make me humble, Shiki. Nonetheless, no, I appreciated, kind of where they took it. I must admit, I was a little surprised. I thought, the whole introduction of Victor Timely was going to lead to, more variance and kind of a connection to maybe, events from Ant-Man or, kind of lead into, events that'll be coming in the next Avengers movie, which is supposedly going to be centered around Kang, although who knows at this point. But
nobody.
But I have to say, given the the growth in character of Loki as a whole and the journey he has traveled, I thought it was an appropriate end for him to find some peace and purpose and understanding in what he would do, being someone who would essentially allow time to kind of persist and let his friends, kind of whether, I go back to the whole conversation he had with He Who Remains, because he basically says, look, if you try to do anything outside of what we're doing here with the sacred timeline, it's going to be nothing but war and everything's going to come crashing to an end. And it's that idea of hope and hope in his friends and hope in those that will fight the good fight against whatever that might be, which I think is what is teeing up what is to come with the Avengers, with the next Avengers movie, that it plays very nicely into his character from the very beginning, who declared, much as I did at the beginning of the episode, that he is burdened with glorious purpose. And that purpose is now to be the life force behind essentially time, and all of these timelines, so that, that there is not a branch that is being removed or pruned or destroyed, and therefore all of life can persist in all of these different multiverses, if you will. I thought that was kind of an interesting way to end it, like to end it with some peace. I will say there's a little disconnect for me. I will grant you this. I think the show played a little fast and loose with the concept of what time is. Like the fact that, when you're in the TVA, time is these branches that have to be refined and then, processed, and then it becomes something else. And they don't really go into detail about what that all is. All we know is this loom and all the processing that it does is really just a fail-safe to make sure the sacred timeline persists. That's really all it's about.
That's what we find out is about. I mean, and I get that they were trying to head fake you this entire time, but but your point still stands that there's not that much explanation of what that actually does. And how it came to be is so confusing that after a while it's like I'm not even. I watched the show and I'm not entirely sure what that all entails.
And we'll talk about this probably next episode when we talk a little bit more about For All Mankind, which has recently started up its 4th season. But I will say, I think one thing working against Loki was the amount of time it was away. I mean, it's been 2 years since the first season, and so there's a little bit of catch up you have to do.
True.
There's a little bit of disconnect with some of the characters, and trying to understand why are these characters important again. There's kind of a reorientation you have to go through. And I say For All Mankind because in the first episode, there is a key character who we'll talk more in depth about it, but a key character who dies. And honestly, that moment was a little lost on me, where I think if they had done season 4, not too long after season 3 concluded, I think I would have had a different feel for that, because the characters would still be fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
I would understand, I remembered who he was, but it was just kind of like, and emotionally, it just didn't hit me, and I think Loki kind of suffered a little bit from that too, that being away for so long and it's only 6 episodes. So you got to kind of remember who everyone is. Why do I care about this character? Like Ravonna Renslayer is someone you remember. Okay, she was the villain, but some of the other like TVA officials, it's like, why am I rooting for this one but not this one? You know what I mean? Like, I don't remember them. And so
and that was And actually, that's an excellent point because and just to interject, like my first instinct wasn't go to For All Mankind, although that's a good recent pull. It's Westworld. I remember the gap between those where you literally have to be like, oh, wait a minute now, how did all this work? Because again, big cast, but it's exacerbated when you talk about the Marvel shows. And this is one of the things where I really feel like this is, if anything, I feel like this is where Marvel drops the ball on this stuff, is that they make the season short enough that you don't even get a chance to expand enough that there's enough material there to then go back and revisit. And whereas like For All Mankind, Westworld, I mean, I'm pretty sure there's like 12 episode seasons.
Yeah.
You know, they're a little bit more substantial. But that's also, unfortunately, that's the, to borrow the term again, the burden of these really high concept, really friggin' incredibly shot and detailed shows that are giving you like movie quality effects, stories, all of that stuff in a weekly show.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I get why it takes so long in between the seasons, but it does suck. To lead to your point, you get that. Wait a minute, what the hell just happened? I gotta get my head back into this after instead of a 3-month layoff like it used to be in the good old days of like TV, like shows that go away from the summer. Now it's like, oh yeah, a year and a half later. Yeah, remember that stuff that happened? Oh yeah,
right.
You better because there's 18 threads that we're all going to pull on.
Yep. Yeah,
good call on that. Good call.
Thank you. Well, and it's not to say the season was perfect, but when I watched that last episode, let me take a step back. Like, first of all, like you mentioned, episode 4, I thought that was a really great way to end that episode, where it completely throws out convention, and you see Victor Timely basically get destroyed. I mean, he's just like torn up by the time radiation, and you're just kind of like, oh crap, this is like where does this go next? Like, I have to give a little bit of a tip of the cap to these shows that go places where it's not predictable where it's going to. Like when a show is predictable, you lose some of the suspense, you lose some of the fun of seeing where it's going. This one kept you on your toes a little bit, which I appreciate and respect. I love the idea of, him getting into this whole like time slipping mode. And at first it was a little wacky and you're like, what the heck is going on in the early episodes? And then episode 5 kind of brings it into focus a bit, where you understand like, okay, now he can control this. And in episode 6, I thought, the last episode was really good because you got to see him exercise the power, but not in a way that the old Loki would have. Like, he's not using it for his own ends. He's always using it in service of trying to, save his friends, save the TVA, save reality as he knows it, so that things can persist and go on. Like, all of this is in service of trying to let life persist, even though it's not, a singular timeline anymore. And it's all of these timelines. He's trying to make it happen. And I love the idea of him spending centuries of his life, from his perspective, to try to master certain things, to make things happen a certain way. I love, as they're replaying that whole like last scene of like episode 4, and he's like saying everyone's lines for them, and he's almost like basically like an elementary school play director, basically telling everyone where to go, where to be, and go do this and go do that. I mean, it was really kind of funny how they did that.
Well, if you love that, you ought to go back and watch Edge of Tomorrow, because it actually did it better.
Did it? Yeah. All right. But I do like how they do revisit He Who Remains, from the end of season 1, and how he and Loki have a back and forth, and there's still, something new we learn from him, something new, like we're understanding about the way he was kind of directing things. I thought it was a very cool effect where during kind of the end of their conversation, Loki's like, how do you know this isn't the first time we've had this conversation? Like, it's getting to a point where Loki is now maybe a step ahead of He Who Remains a little bit. And I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, but that's also where it went off the rails for me, because the entire ending, the entire like finale of the show almost totally sidesteps the antagonist. Like it doesn't lead to a confrontation with him. It just eventually is like, oh, and I know how I'll beat him. I'll just go up the little stairs in my leather slippies with my like Loki version 4 costume, and now everything is done. And it's like, well, wait a minute. How does that invalidate? That's the thing. Like I'm sure there's an explanation.
Well,
I'm sure that there's people online right now who are coming up with their own headcanon, their own fan fiction, all this. But it goes to like what we talked about in terms of one of the Thrawn books or something like that. When you had said, or maybe James had said, or Jimmy Dice had said, oh, well, this book explains this. I'm like, well, if you need that book to explain this movie, you've done a piss poor job in your movie, because you shouldn't need that auxiliary material to tell the story. And so for me, like you didn't do a good job of explaining how this thwarts He Who Remains, how this ending is victorious for the good guy.
May I try?
And you can try, but the fact is, what I'm saying is, I don't think that it's there on the screen. And if you don't get it on the screen, and it needs to be like, it needs like chowderheads like us and everyone else on the interwebs to kind of like,
well, I think it is on the
gin
screen.
this to get. I think
episode 6 shows a character who is exhausting all options that are before him to try to save not only his friends, but to save the realities that have since become.
Okay.
Because that is what they're all about, right? And he has exhausted those things. Kang has basically...
It's got to be Kane!
Kane! I said Kane for a minute there. Oh, yes. That was damn good, sir. Well done.
Somebody just goosed Paul. He likes it. Good. Oh my gosh, it was Bob Holly. What's going on?
Who would
here?
have thunk it?
I know.
No, but you have a character who has exhausted all possibilities and comes to the conclusion that the only way that this is going to happen is if he takes the burden on himself. And so I believe he does defeat He Who Remains, because He Who Remains set the system up to be all about the sacred timeline. If you want to live your reality and you want to live for yourself, this is what's going to end up happening. This is the thing that's going to persist. The choice that Loki had to make was whether he goes forward and becomes basically the life force behind time itself, behind all these timelines, that he keeps them going and, sits content in the idea that he's doing this for people that he cares deeply about. And I think that is the difference. And I think that is, so he doesn't beat He Who Remains in the way that Ant-Man, beats Kang, where there's a physical contest or some sort of battle between them. The battle is a battle of the mind and of wits, if you will. And I think Loki wins it because of the fact that he accepts his role, he accepts his burden purpose. And I like that they call it that, because it isn't, it is a glorious purpose in the sense that he is now infusing life into these timelines. He's keeping basically time itself going across this multiverse, but it's a burden. And you sit there and wonder, will this like when it was over, I'm like, this is a great way to bring this character full circle from the selfish, arrogant, power hungry character he was to this humble, willing to now, sit in eternity essentially for a greater purpose, and not knowing if that purpose is really going to carry out the way that he hopes it will, but he does it nonetheless on their behalf. So sacrificing himself in a way. I just thought it was a beautiful way to kind of take that character from one extreme all the way to the other. And, I think some memes have been posted on Instagram and on YouTube with this, but it is very, poetic that the last lines he utters are the same lines he utters to his father when he is basically thwarted, that he's doing this for you, for all of, I don't remember the exact lines, but if you look it up, or maybe we can post it in the show notes, that he says these lines to his father, and I think it was Thor, when he's basically, being captured or whatever by his father and so forth. But he says those same lines at the end of the episode, but when he just makes the walk up to, where he takes his throne and becomes this, really what from what I've read, he's become what is known in the Marvel comics as, Loki, god of stories, basically is what he's become. He's taken his rightful place as a god. And he is essentially, the life force behind time itself. And so, but I say all of that more in service of the character, but definitely can concede that I think the way the show dealt with time as a thing was very loose, very fast and loose with that. And so I get what you're saying about when he walks up and grabs the branches. It's a very meta sort of scene, because you're like, okay, if those branches are time and he's holding on to them and now he's infusing some sort of energy into them, so is he time, basically?
What is that energy? And where does that energy come from? Yeah.
Well, I'm not as worried about the energy, because he's always been known to be an enchanter of sorts, so I think his energy takes
but it's been
in different ways.
Oh, he can shoot daggers and stuff like that. It's never been like, oh, and I can take that energy and animate things. This is the thing. Like, I mean, I'll go the distance on that, but explain to me how these powers have come to be. Put it on the screen. Don't make it have to be like this.
Yeah.
This afterwards explanation. If you, again, like, we're having to have this conversation because 50% of us didn't get it.
We're having this conversation because you, sir,
what?
Look on the bright side of life.
I'm not looking on the bright side of it. This is, I'm just saying, like, it's not a great ending. It's not like
I think it was a great ending.
I think if it's a great ending, it was very poorly explained, and I think also just the fact that you don't have a direct confrontation somehow with your protagonist and antagonist to end the thing, and it just sort of ends.
But it's established.
That's not good.
It's established that when he goes to do the confrontation, it ends always in the same way. Like, it was never meant for him to defeat he who remains in that room when he's alive. Like, that's not how that's supposed to play out.
But again, there's got to be a better explanation for it than just, oh, and then this happens, and then, oh, and it ends. Like, but you didn't explain how all of this is a thing. And to me, that's where it falls short. Like, you have failed in your job if you do not at least, if you don't explain it, you better have a really good reason for explaining it. And I don't think they have a really good reason for not explaining this thing.
I think we need to agree to disagree, sir.
I don't agree to disagree. I'm just going to disagree to disagree.
Well, that is the curmudgeon that we've come to know and love. So.
Yes.
All right. Anything else on Loki, or you want to move forward with the results?
In the words of John Lovitz, it stinks.
Good God. Oh, as he then pounds down a grapefruit polar, if I'm seeing the color correctly. So,
yep, I did.
All right.
Damn tootin', I did.
I cannot stand that flavor.
Really?
I'm actually drinking a
this is ruby red grapefruit. I'll have you know.
That one. I don't like
Good God. My furnace sounds like
Oh, I thought you let some gas loose or something and we're now regretting that choice.
No, that's ye old furnace cranking over.
I couldn't hear it.
Anyways, yes,
right.
Let's get into our adjudication, sir.
Ready for the adjudication, sir? All right. So we have 32 rumors in total. We're going to run through these and determine who is going to come out the victor. The prize on the line, as always, is a fine bottle of bourbon, which I am. I still owe Uncle Todd his Ahsoka winnings, which I will get those out the door.
A fine bottle.
A fine bottle.
The finest bottle, $10 will buy.
That's right. That's right. All right. Are you ready, sir?
Oh, why the hell not?
All right, here we go. Number one. Again, this is we break this into sections. This is our section called In or Out, where we like to rumorize, pontificate on who might show up and who might not. We will see Doctor Strange. Uncle Todd said the real.
Oh,
and they called him said the real.
Oh,
but
boy.
the result was Jabroni.
Oh, most definitely it was.
So no one is in the lead. I added another column to our table here, ladies and gentlemen, where we're going to track the leader. We're not going to do this in our heads because, quite frankly, he's drinking some beer, I'm drinking some bourbon, and neither of our memories are any good at this stage right now. All right, number 2. We will see the Scarlet Witch. Uncle Todd said Jabroni. And they called him said Jabroni. It was, in fact, Jabroni, but it's a push, so there is no leader after 2 at this point. Were you disappointed that there was no Scarlet Witch?
No, not really.
Like, as much as you didn't agree with the ending, do you agree with the fact that they didn't try to interject some of the other players like Ant-Man, like Scarlet Witch, like Doctor Strange, or were you kind of hoping they would weave something like that in?
I mean, there's always the fanboy part of me that's like, oh yeah, the more superheroes, the better. However, I read something on Reddit actually the other day where it rung true. Like, Marvel in many ways has stopped doing solo flicks.
Yeah.
Things are definitely much more of an ensemble nature now. And granted, I mean, all of these movies are to some degree because you have minor characters and all that, but becoming much more so about, oh, and hey, it's this person and this person and this person, this person. And I think... And I think you have brought this up several times, the idea of sometimes you don't need like the stakes to be the universe is going to implode on itself. Like, it's nice to have some smaller stakes. It's nice to not have to, everything does not have to be cranked up to 11. And I feel that way about.
Does not have to be a tomahawk. It's nice to have a little 8-ounce filet mignon every now and then, ladies and gentlemen.
Even when you're making a good point, you're so bougie, it's ridiculous. Anyways.
I thought Uncle Todd would appreciate that.
Somebody shove a devil egg in this guy's mouth right now.
All right.
Actually, he would enjoy that too much.
I would actually. I don't know if you've noticed there's a meme I've noticed popping up on Instagram where I think it's a guy at a wedding, and I think he's very emotional, and then he turns around and something happens where his bride, who I think maybe wasn't able to walk, is able to walk, and he just starts crying. Well, people have taken this whole thing of him turning around and crying like that. You've seen this. Well, someone did this with basically the theme is what I do when I see Thanksgiving deviled eggs. And I meant to send it to Uncle Todd because I thought he would appreciate that given my appreciation of that dish. So,
oh, and speaking of Thanksgiving, dude, I'm going to let you know about this because
yes, sir.
Next episode we'll have to follow up on this. Me and the missus are going to have a good old fashioned a gravy recipe contest on Thanksgiving. Because she has, I mean, and granted, my wife does, we're very different. I can bake really well. I can cook. I'm just not, whoa, hey, my goodness.
You waited 5 more seconds.
I love it because you know what? Your father does that to me, and good on you for doing it to him.
I was getting close.
Yes, firstborn and only child.
For the listeners at home,
what can I do for you?
His daughter snuck up and just scared the bejesus out of him, and I can't tell you how many times he's done that to me. So I am loving it.
So what's up?
It's not fair. You scare me all the time. I want to be the one.
That's right. He does. You
okay? But so what's up? You going to bed?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good night.
Night.
Love you. Thank you for almost putting me into corner.
Good on you, Kaylin.
Tim is very proud of you for almost scaring me.
That's what I like to see.
Anyways,
now to make that even better, when the lights were out and she just comes up,
I know,
it's like bah.
Soiled myself. So, anyways, my wife does really well at cooking, not so well at baking. She does not like to follow directions. I follow directions very well, probably to a fault. Anyways, so she makes her own gravy and all that, the drippings and all that. And I saw this recipe, like a video of Gordon Ramsay doing his gravy. Oh, my sweet mother of God, does that look amazing.
Nice.
And she's like, I don't think that's just too much. This is that. I'm like, you know what? we're going to have ourselves a little gravy cook-off on Thanksgiving is what we're going to do.
Ding.
Yes,
Very
indeed.
Nice. Very nice.
Oh, but anyways.
Can I tell you what we're doing for Thanksgiving?
Oh, I'm guessing you're deep frying half of a cow plus
you're
gonna do a turbuffin. It's gonna be a turkey stuffed with a cow leg.
I am doing nothing. That's what I'm doing.
Actually, that'd be more like.
I am relying on the fine chef work of our good friends at the local restaurant we like to frequent, Adele's. They do basically they make turkey, they make sides, and so we're getting.
Are you serious?
We are getting a turkey done by them, already pre-cut, getting a couple sides with it, and then we're gonna have sides of our own, and we're just gonna like reheat everything and pick it up on Wednesday night, throw it in the oven Thursday. I'm gonna take it easy. It's gonna be nice, relaxed, and it's gonna be
you
good.
Lazy bastard. You're gonna be drinking bourbon starting at 9:30 a.m.
You know it. I'm gonna be watching those Macy's Thanksgiving Day balloons go down with a little bit of bourbon on the mind.
By 1 p.m., he's gonna be peeing into the bushes in his front yard and saying, "I'm the president of the HOA. What are you gonna do?"
My son's gonna be like, "Dad, are you okay?" I'm fine.
It'd be a real interesting HOA meeting next time. Tim, did you in fact urinate on Mrs. Francis's Shih Tzu?
Did you in fact mean to streak across the neighborhood at 11 a.m. on Thanksgiving?
That could have been anyone's ass. Moving at that speed, you cannot make a positive identification. I've been working on my sprinting.
Oh my! We're only 2 questions in, and we're already devolving into that could have been anyone's ass.
Did you see how taut those cheeks were?
There we go with the taut cheeks. Oh God, it's all over. Here we go, folks.
Anyways,
oh my gosh.
All right, where are we? We're on question, 29 now?
We're on question 3.
Oh, gosh.
All right, we will see an eternal. Uncle Todd said the real. Man they called him said jabroni. That is jabroni, so it is now a +1 for the man they called him.
You're wrong.
No, you were wrong, sir.
I know. I was saying that to myself.
All right. Now, this is an interesting one, and it doesn't matter in terms of the score because we both guessed the same thing. We will see Zaniac. And this is kind of funny because we kind of saw Zaniac in a way.
Well, we saw Zaniac as the game, plus as the dude who's playing Zaniac, right?
Yes. So Zaniac ends up being a interpretation of the Marvel villain in Loki, where he's actually like a movie character in one of the realities. So he wasn't actually a character in the sense of how he was in the comics. He just was a presence, if you will, as a character who was acted upon by one of the former TVA agents. I put jabroni with a question mark, but do you want to call this the real? I mean,
that's the real. I mean,
that is the real. All right.
I mean, we got him as a video game plus as an interpretive, presence through the as an actor. So yeah.
Yep. All right. So both of us guessed jabroni on that one, so we got that wrong, but still +1 for me. We will finally see Mephisto. We went jabronis across the board on this one, and this was a jabroni.
Once again, just getting Mephistoed left, right, and center.
I think if Mephisto does end up making an appearance in some sort of Marvel vehicle, I think we have to have an episode dedicated to that. I think you and I need to be drinking bourbon heavily for it, because it's like it was how many years and it finally came to fruition. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things you got to celebrate.
So this comedian Christopher Titus has a bit where he talks about, he's like, you remember back in the middle of COVID, our government finally said that, hey, there's aliens, and we're all like, stop. We can't take any more right now.
That is fantastic.
Care. We're going to pretend it never happened.
It never did. It never did.
That's how I feel like we're going to be if Mephisto actually ever enters the MCU. We'll just be like, I can't take any more.
Yep. All right, number 6 of In or Out. We will see Thor. Uncle Todd said the real on this one. I was surprised by this.
Again, more superhero, the better.
Said jabroni. It was jabroni, so it is going to be a +2.
It most certainly was.
For the man they called him.
This is not looking good for me so far.
No, it is not. It is not. Number 7, we will see several Kang variants. Now, several would be more than 2 in my book. Couple is 2. Several is more than 2.
Let's
we
look
both
up
said
this
the real. I ruled this is jabroni. Do you agree?
Let's see here. What is the definition of several? I'm looking at images. Why is that? More than 2, but not many. What the frack kind of definition is that?
Hey, it said more than 2. That's enough in my book.
But not many.
But not many.
Give me one indefinite, vague measurement with another. Thank you.
Indeed. Number 8, we will see an incursion and its effects. We both said the real on this. That couldn't have been further from the truth. We saw no such incursions. And that was jabroni, so still +2 for the man they call Tim. Number 9, we will be introduced to Battle World, the results of multiple fallen worlds being patched together into one. Now, maybe at some future point we'll see this, but we did not see this in Loki Season 2. That is jabroni. Uncle Todd went the real on this one.
I did?
Man they call Tim went jabroni. So that is now +3 for the man they call Tim.
That does not sound like something I would have done.
I was shocked as much as you are right now by the fact when you said the real on this one, because I'm like, really? You think really? But you went with it.
Well,
I think it might have been the bourbon you were drinking that night, but nonetheless.
That could have been anyone's ass.
This one will make Uncle Todd smile. We will see Ant-Man, Scott Lang.
Yeah.
Uncle Todd said jabroni. I said the real. It was, in fact, jabroni. My advantage is now down to +2.
Well, you put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Number 11, we will see the Wasp, Hope Van Dyne. We said jabroni across the board. That was, in fact, jabroni. So that is
you can only have 2 bad haircuts in one show.
That is fair.
And Sylvie had the market cornered on that this season.
Evangeline Lilly, she brings the haircut she does every time she shows up.
Who made that wardrobe decision? Again, I would just like to know what the thought process was. I mean, I get kind of like the 80s mullet with Sylvie this season. I'm not understanding the Hope Van Dyne, because it was like,
actually,
yeah, you've got money. It's almost like Mark Davis level bad.
I want to ask you,
the owner of the Raiders, like, you've got cash. Like, that isn't even supercuts. That's like a bad Floby.
Yeah. I do want to ask you though, were you disappointed or were you whatever with the presence of Sylvie throughout the season? Because I feel like she had much less of a presence than she did in season 1. Like, she was there, but I didn't feel like it had the same weight that season 1 had.
It was a different vibe.
Yeah.
And I felt like they kind of defanged Sylvie in a lot of ways. Sylvie's season 1 was very much a badass. And in this season, seems like almost kind of like a little bit of like PTSD Thor in a way, like just sort of like non-confrontational in some sort of ways, or just world weary. But I mean, in a way that makes sense. But
now that she killed He Who Remains, like she was just trying to live out like the free will life. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I feel like it kind of boiled down to. She was just kind of trying to live that free will life.
Yeah, but they made that seem as bland as humanly possible. Which is like, okay,
maybe to a point, right?
I get it, but at a certain point, it's like, okay, now you're making it's the difference between heat and like go away heat.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I get it that you're trying to make a point here, but now you've just made me not care about this character, because in trying to make their life seem bland, you have made the entire character seem bland.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I felt about Sylvie, which stinks, because I was digging on her character season 1.
I was expecting more from her, like I was really kind of surprised by what we got. But
I think honestly, they did that actor dirty. Like they did not, I mean, not, I mean, we're not talking like John Boyega in like, the second, third Star Wars flicks there, but not that
that's
far out of sight of it.
Right there.
Oh yeah. And Rose too. Just, ugh.
All right. Number 12.
Yes.
It's not Chavo classic, but will we see Loki classic? And Richard E. Grant, we did not. We both said the real on this one. That was a big old jabroni.
That was wishful thinking on both of our parts. I think we both we knew we were tossing that one to the winds.
Yeah. All right. So after the in or out section, we are at +2 for the man they call Tim.
Mm-hmm.
Our next section, a staple of the Free Range Idiocy congregation. What's up with that? Number 13, Zaniac will be the antagonist that Loki is chasing down along with Kang.
No.
I call this jabroni, but what was kind of funny is when you think about one or two of the episodes, they were actually chasing that character down.
I mean, they were, but they were not chasing.
But
like
it wasn't Zaniac like the villain. You know what I mean?
And it wasn't even like someone like it wasn't even like the hunter playing or hunter like living the life of Zaniac. It was the hunter living the life of an actor who played Zaniac. So it's that far removed where it's like, no, there's no argument here. There's no argument to be made.
Yeah. All right, next one, number 14. Ravonna Renslayer will be Kang's new love interest. Now, I ruled this jabroni because while they did allude to them maybe being somewhat romantically entangled, it didn't feel like something new. You know, it felt like something that had been established before. What are your thoughts?
No, I mean, I don't think it was firmly established enough to call it a love interest. Like it was vaguely hinted at. Like there wasn't enough. Again,
right.
And I don't even think Renslayer is another character who kind of got done dirty in the 6-episode format because her storyline was so fracking microwaved. It was like it just burnt to a crisp.
Yeah,
it was ridiculous. It was just a molten pool.
What did you make of now I know you didn't like the ending, but what did you make of at least the last scene with her? Because she's it's implied that she's kind of at the end of time.
Mm-hmm.
She's in an area that used to be the TVA because you see the grass kind of blow away and that plate is there, which was the
very
building.
Conveniently like 1 square foot blows. Yeah.
And then there's like this entity that approaches her that's like purple flashing and something. Now I've read in articles that many people believe that to be Eliath, that was basically Eliath basically about to encroach upon her and consume her, you know, like he has others. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what your thought was on that.
Again, I think it's a honestly, I had, when they all of a sudden they flashed to that, I was like, oh yeah, her. Completely lost track of her.
Yeah.
Didn't really care that much because her character really was kind of just a paper thin, like it
pretty defanged at that point.
Yeah, like here let me just move the plot along a little bit. Not like it was just
well said, sir. Well said.
Oh, thank you.
Number 15, the TVA will rise up and overthrow Kang.
Now here I do want to make an argument. I believe there is an argument to be made here where, because of the way that this is phrased,
there we go.
The TVA. Now, the TVA is made up of the agents of the TVA, correct? Mm-hmm. Well, Loki is an agent of the TVA. So therefore, even in this like craptastic ending that they had, Loki does rise up quite literally.
Okay, Loki
going up the
little
staircase.
Whoa,
going up
player.
the staircase.
Whoa, player.
And in that way, as you have said, overthrows Kang.
But Loki is not the TVA.
Well, no,
he's a part of the TVA.
Yes, but what is the TVA if it is not made up of its component parts?
I need you to turn down the can't think. Good God Almighty!
Part of my strategy.
The bongos are just—they're causing me to not think. Well, I think it's the bourbon that's causing me to not think. But anyways,
well, you're on like a quad now. You're not even doing doubles anymore. You're just pouring right to the top of the Glencairn glass.
I think I've killed a good part of that bottle.
Oh my gosh, dude! Forget 32 questions. We're going to have to go to a 12-step meeting for the end of this thing.
This was written saying the TVA as a
Yes.
whole was going to rise up against Kang and overthrow him.
It's not explicitly stating the TVA as a whole. The TVA at that point
is not. Wait a minute.
Hang on.
The TVA is not Loki. Come on,
but
now.
at the point that you're dealing with at this time, the TVA, as far as we know at this point, is essentially the people in that room. Correct?
I disagree.
Who else is left? We don't see anybody.
Well,
ain't nobody
there's a
helping
whole
them.
other, city out there,
but none of them are there, and they are representatives of the TVA. So
but
that
they
is
don't
that is a group.
collectively rise up against Kang. That's the thing. I don't.
They are by helping, and then Loki is the one who carries him across the finish line. He is in his way. He is rising up against Kang as a representative of the TVA.
You yourself said that he didn't actually end up fighting him in any way, shape, or form.
He didn't,
so how
but
is he overthrowing him? You just contradicted yourself.
I am not contradicting because I said he walked up that invisible stairway in his nice little green leather slippies.
And he didn't fight anyone.
Rising up.
You were upset that he didn't fight anyone.
That doesn't.
Now all of a sudden he's fighting someone.
It's not. He did not. It doesn't say anything about a fight in that question. It said he rose up and overthrew. And even you had said earlier that this is the only way for him to do that, is to not have the direct.
Him.
He did overthrow him because by him assuming his little throne of timeliney branches thing, that overthrows Kang and his future.
Him. It was his way.
Does.
It was his way.
He does overthrow him.
He does not overthrow him.
He does overthrow him.
All right. How are we going to rule this? Because I feel this is strongly jabroni on this one. I'm sorry.
I strongly feel this is real.
Oh, you are full of horse pucky.
Dude, if you're going to... You argued passionately about this, so I'm going to use your reasoning against you.
He did not overthrow Kang. I never argued that.
First of all, he did rise up the staircase.
Oh, stop. I have to do a gorilla monsoon. Will you stop?
I'm sorry, but if you're not going to listen to reason, then I think the only reasonable thing to do is to throw this question out entirely.
You want to throw this question out because it's not in your favor is what you want to do.
Well, no, because then that even hurts me because I feel like I should get points for this. Oh, he's going to have another... Here, let me throw back a shot.
I disagree.
Oh, you're so drunk with your own power. Oh, you...
Drunk with my deviled eggs.
You president of an HOA just used to getting your own way over everything.
Well,
Fine. You know what? You do you.
All right.
You have to live with your conscience, though.
I believe this is jabroni. I do not believe the TVA as a whole rose up and overthrew Kang. It just didn't happen. Sorry.
And I think that you're suspect.
All right. You can think that, Shecky. All right. +3 for the man they call Tim. That's
the rest of this show under protest.
All right. Number 16, OB.
You are worse than Hulk Hogan.
Thank you, Shiki. OB Kei Kwan will have an instrumental part in Loki thwarting Victor Timely's plans. We both went the real on this. This is jabroni. So everything stays the same.
Well, I mean, I would actually argue he did. I mean, he's the one who helped him with the time slippage. I don't know. I mean,
what would you say was Victor Timely's plans, though? Like that's like
Victor Timely. Okay, yeah.
Like when I wrote this was the idea. I think this was a rumor where Victor Timely ends up being, like kind of a villain character, and we end up finding him to be something very different. I mean, he's a Kang variant, but he's not one of the malicious ones. If anything, he's kind of almost like an innocent bystander who gets kind of yanked into this whole thing, unbeknownst to him.
All right, fine.
Number 17, Victor Timely is the original Kang. We both went the real on this. I think this is jabroni. He's just a variant. We actually don't know who the original Kang was. But I do believe this was from the comics. I believe Victor Timely was the actual origin point of the Kang character, starting in the past. Number 18, the Council of Kangs are the primary antagonist. You want to argue this one, sir?
Just shut up and move along.
Uncle Todd said the real. I said jabroni. That was, in fact, a jabroni.
Get off my lawn.
Get off my lawn, you crazy kids. All right. For the record, a man they called him is up +4.
You are worse than Hulk Hogan.
Number 19, Loki and Sylvie prevent Victor Timely from achieving something that allowed Kang to traverse the multiverse.
To what verse?
Traverse the multiverse.
Okay, I thought you said diverse. I'm like,
the idea behind this question was that Victor Timely, there was a rumor that Victor Timely was the one who created whatever the device was in Ant-Man and the Wasp that he had to restore. And so the thought was that Loki and Sylvie basically prevent him from achieving that, which allows him to jump across the multiverse.
I see.
So we said jabroni. It was jabroni. Number 20. Loki's multiverse jumping causes an incursion. We both said the real. That, in fact, was jabroni.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Number 21. King Loki, a variant, will be an antagonist during this season. This was one of the variants of Loki that was very power hungry. This was something from the comics. But we were not seduced by such rumor. We were jabroni across the board, and that was in fact jabroni.
Who are you kidding? We were like flipping coins at this point.
Probably. That or bourbon caps. Number 22, Loki's variants will assemble to take on the Kangs. Uncle Todd said jabroni. Man they called him said the real. This was jabroni, so it is now +3 in favor of the man they called him.
Mm-hmm.
Number 23, Mobius.
Oh, wait, hang on a second.
Yes,
hang on a second.
Oh, good God. Here we go. Got to do his, icky shuffle over here. Or his LA Night shuffle, whichever you want to call it. You know what? I'm up +3 right now. Give me some glorious, please. I want to hear those ivories tickle. I want to hear the glorious theme song. Go for it.
No, God, please,
Oh, come on.
No!
Oh. You are not a gentleman in a scout.
You are worse than Hulk Hogan.
That is you. All right, number 23. Mobius is revealed to be a Loki variant. We both said jabroni. It was jabroni. Oops. All right. +3 for the man they called him still. Number 24, Sylvie is revealed to be the Enchantress. This was a character that we had talked about in Loki season 1. She is not revealed to be that character. In fact, as we talked about, she was rather, kind of sidelined for the most part.
She's revealed to work at a McDonald's in Iowa or something.
And we can't make that up. That's actually what happened.
Yeah.
Uncle Todd said jabroni. I said the real. It is jabroni. We are now +2 for the man they called him. His lead is whittling away.
I don't know.
25.
I'm still not feeling great about this.
Galactus will debut. We both said jabroni. We were correct in that thought. No change to the advantage. So +2 for the man they called him.
Just for the record, how many reels out of all of our rumors were there? I think 3.
3.
Well, no, yeah, because we changed 1. Yeah,
you're right. 3.
That's great. Out of 32, we had 3.
Yes.
These things that actually happened.
Number 26, Loki will team up with Doctor Strange and Wanda. We said jabroni across the board. That was, in fact, wise. Jabroni it is.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so after what's up with that, it is the man they called Tim is up +2 on Uncle Todd. We are in the final section of our Real and Jabroni, a section we like to affectionately call When the Man Comes Around. Or as Uncle Todd likes to call it, they're going to die.
Welcome to the jungle, baby. You're going to die.
Number 27, Kang will kill Mobius. We both said the real. That was jabroni, so no change. Number 28, the TVA will be destroyed. We both said the real on that one. I ruled this the real because technically the TVA was destroyed. Maybe not permanently, but it was destroyed. He had to jump back in time to get back to when it would actually existed.
I guess, yeah.
So, but nonetheless, doesn't affect the score. Number 29, we learn Loki himself is the catalyst for the multiverse. Uncle Todd said the real man they called Tim said jabroni. That is jabroni. That is +3 for the man they called Tim. All right, number 30. Loki takes over the TVA and uses it for nefarious means. We went jabroni across the board, and that was a big old jabroni. Loki was, if nothing else, honorable and sacrificial in his actions. Much to the chagrin of Uncle Todd. Number 31. Loki will warn the Avengers in the main timeline of Kang. Uncle Todd said jabroni. Man they called Tim said the real. This was jabroni. Man they called Tim is down to a +2 advantage, but it matters not, because number 32, we both guessed the same. Ladies and gentlemen, Loki Season 2 will conclude with events or impacts that will lead into Avengers the Kang Dynasty. We both said the real. Doesn't matter if it's real or jabroni. We both said the same thing. But I ruled the real on this one because, let's face it. There we go. Thank you, sir.
Glorious.
Yes.
No, I won't give in till I'm victorious. And I will defend.
Thank you, sir. I might fall over if I do that.
I was going to say, you get up, you're going to go crashing through whatever that doorway is to your right.
It's actually a closet right here, not a doorway.
You'd be like Ric Flair with a walker.
Woo! Oh, my goodness. Well, at the end of this contest, well played, sir. This is the man they called Tim up by 2. So victorious I am. So across our 2 real and jabronis, we are each victorious. I know in the past we've done like a push and we haven't done anything, but I am going to still send you a bottle of bourbon, sir. So I am going to honor my loss. I hope you would do the same.
I'm going to Uber Eats a bag of flaming dog poo to your front doorway.
Honey, there's a bag of flaming Cheetos that just showed up.
No, I'll send you.
Yeah,
I'll send you a bottle of Maine's finest. What the hell's the nasty friggin' Fireball? Oh gosh, it's
Moses.
It's Maine's second. Actually, no, it took over from Allen's Coffee Brandy as like the state liquor. It's a cinnamon flavored whiskey.
Ah, okay.
And it is terrible.
Oh boy.
It is terrible.
Boy.
It is horrible.
I actually saw on as I was flipping through some reels on Instagram. I don't know if you ever heard of, and this is a liquor that I think is mostly local to Chicago. I don't think it's widely known. Have you ever heard of Malort's?
Nope.
Okay, so it's a liquor that's mostly Chicago based. It's a horrendous tasting liquor, but it's like something that's like a rite of passage here. I actually saw a video where a guy basically pours an entire bottle of Malort's into this massive cup and takes an Italian beef sandwich, which is typically dipped in, grease. It's usually kind of a greasy sort of sandwich.
Yeah.
And dips his sandwich into the cup of Malort's and then eats it. And yeah, thank you, Uncle Todd. That's exact. Uncle Todd is basically faux throwing up over there.
Oh, dry heaving, dude. That's faux nothing.
Oh my god, it was a disgusting thing. Though I've tasted Malort's before. I would never dip food into it and then eat it. It would just not end well for me. So
in other words, have you ever wondered what a rotten cow's anus tastes like?
Oh, sweet Moses.
Drink Malort's.
Sweet Moses. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up our real and jabroni adjudication of Loki Season 2. A phenomenal journey for the Loki character, although Uncle Todd would disagree on that judgment.
I would. And you know what? I'm feeling better and better about that hex that I put on your fantasy football team.
Speaking of which, let's check the score, ladies and gentlemen.
Let's
162 to 135. Quick Slants is on its way to a 5-5-1 record. Once again at 500. But we
celebrating 500. Maybe you're going to get yourself one of them.
Rise above.
Maybe you're going to get yourself one of them Indianapolis Colts participation, banners that you can hang. They're right behind you.
Never.
And you know what would be even better if it had a misspelling in it. That would just be perfect.
Throw this right between the crack of your ass.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you, sir, for once again just tormenting me with all of this buffoonery.
And another thing.
What do you got for and another thing?
Well, actually, I just threw in something that I purchased tonight at the local Costco. I went out and I was actually, our sons are coming home for Thanksgiving. So, of course, that means we need to restock on toilet paper and sparkling water. But while I was there, I'm holding up for Uncle Todd to see a beautiful Atari retro video game system by, I don't know if the company is My Arcade or if it's Game Station Pro, but nonetheless, it is a little something I found at Costco. 200 plus games across the Atari,
none of which we know.
5200, 7800 arcade and bonus games. Yes, there is no Pitfall, but there is apparently an SD card that you can plug into this thing, and you can load some games up that way. There is no Pitfall, but there is Yar's Revenge. There is Boxing. There is, let's see, Breakout, Centipede, Millipede. There's Super Breakout, if Breakout isn't enough for you. Apparently, there's the trilogy of Sword Quest games, which I never realized was a thing. Sword Quest, Earthworld, Fireworld, and Waterworld. Basically, I guess, what's that James Cameron movie? Avatar? I think it's like the Avatar, except in
God,
8-bit form.
Don't we have another like 5 of those movies coming?
Video pinball, man. Video pinball. Ooh. But Yar's Revenge was a favorite of mine back in the day. That game is just addictive. So and what's cool is the controllers are wireless. So there's no wired controllers here. It is a little mini like 2600 Atari 2600 looking thing, and then you got the controllers here wireless. Very cool for the Atari. So
see, that's where I'm going to have to call foul on this, because I want the full Atari experience. I want like the faux wood on the sides.
I want tangled wires, baby.
Yes.
I want the switches I got to push down to like reset the game.
Yep. You have like the 9-volt converter that was, out of the wall that my cat used to chew on the power cord as I'm playing. I'm just waiting for all of a sudden to be like, and the cat's fricasseed there right in front of my eyes.
Like the cat in National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Exactly. That's what I was waiting for.
Oh, man.
Well, but congratulations to you on your purchase, and good luck with the toilet paper and the pallet worth of fizzy water that you bought.
I told Uncle Todd when our boys come home, the LaCroix is gone through in a volume that can only be described as if you took that LaCroix and turned it into beer, it would be like a weekend kegerator sort of thing. It'd be like just a crazy amount of just aluminum cans you got to dispense into the recycle bin. But nonetheless, we do recycle here. So,
well, that's good to know.
Well,
for me, my and another thing is something that a friend of mine had sent to me today, which I got to admit, it's a little bit on the janky side, but it's still worthwhile. It's Van Halen's Fair Warning album with all of the vocals removed. Now, the title of the video falsely claims that these are instrumental tracks. They are not. You can hear the faint shadow of David Lee Roth's vocals in the background. They did some sort of mixing software off of whatever. Yeah. Which, granted, with some of the options out there now, you can remove parts of tracks and, get to the what would be like the stems or the individual tracks of a recording now, to a decent degree, but I think there's limits, of course, and of course I don't know who did this, but it is rather interesting, and I will actually go one further. I'll throw a bonus in here because there is I found on YouTube. It came across my stream, and it was a recording of Van Halen recording "Jamie's Crying," but it's the room mics and apparently like in the live room where they recorded the song. So you hear drums, bass, guitar. There's no vocals. They were just doing like rhythm beds and whatever. And oh my gosh, just the sound of the band. And I think that's actually kind of the interesting thing about removing Diamond Dave's vocals is you hear just how tight of a unit musically and instrumentally Van Halen was. And not just Eddie, because it's so easy to give Eddie a ton of credit, and God knows he was deserving of it. But it's tough it's easy to minimize Michael Anthony and even Alex, who I would have to say is not one of my favorite rock drummers, but he has his moments. And damn, when you have a powerhouse like Eddie Van Halen in the band, that's all you need, is you just need to have a couple moments.
Yeah.
Otherwise, just don't F it up. That's your job. So it's kind of interesting to listen to these songs without David Lee Roth. However, I will come to the defense of Diamond Dave and say it also makes you appreciate like the way that he sang, using my air quotes, and structured his melodies to kind of sound different. Like there is a unique sound to Van Halen, the Roth era Van Halen. And it's very interesting to kind of see the two sides of that, because it does make you appreciate like, oh, wow, he did actually bring something there. So even though you're thinking like, oh, I'm going to get rid of Dave's vocals and it'd be great.
Yeah.
It does make you appreciate like, oh, wow, his vocals did make this band sound different, because his vocals did not, mirror other bands' vocal melodies and ways of singing. I mean, if I were writing, if someone sat the lyrics down and gave me the music and said, just come up with something, I guarantee you, as someone who's sung for quite a while now, I wouldn't have come up with what he did.
Yeah.
And it would sound probably very generic, compared to what he did. So I mean, hey, credit all the way around. It just, if nothing else, it gives you a deeper appreciation of what all the members of the band brought to the table and really created something very unique.
Yeah.
That being said, I'll still take Van Hagar. That's just me.
Amen and amen.
Well, thank you very much, everybody, for sticking around and listening to our jibber jabbering as the man they call Tim finishes up his fifth double of the evening. Yeah, he shut off because the bottle's empty. That's why he shut off.
The bottle's not empty. Come on now.
I know it's only half full. So thank you very much for tuning in and for listening. We do certainly appreciate it. If you are a member of the Free Range Idiocy congregation, thank you very much. Feel free to pass the collection plate wherever you're at, and then just keep the money, because I mean, we're so used to not making money off of this. It would be weird if we did. If you're not a member of the Free Range Idiocy congregation, what you got to do is you got to join by following us. And you can do that. You can go to freerangeidiocy.com and you can find all of our podcast episodes there. Download them one at a time. Download the whole thing. Subscribe right there through the Podbean app, or you can find us on the podcast purveyor of your choice. Just to name a few, we're on Apple Podcasts. We are on Spotify. We are on Pandora. We are on whatever the hell Alexa, Amazon calls their podcast service, like the worst branded podcast service ever.
The APS, Amazon Podcast Service.
Is that what it's called?
No, I'm just making that up.
See, even that would be better.
Almost sounds like the Acolyte Protection Agency, the APA.
Oh, that'd be great.
Bam, 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 bam.
Damn. And of course, we're on Google Podcasts and many more. So just go ahead and search for us. You'll find us. If you'd also like to follow us on the social medias, you can find us on Facebook. We are on the Instagram. We're also on the YouTubes, ladies and gentlemen. And there you can find full episodes as well. So if you want another way to subscribe and you don't particularly want another app in your life, you can go right to the YouTubes and subscribe to us there and get all of your episodes there as well. If you have any questions, thoughts, concerns, or any suggestions for a show idea, we're going to run out of ideas sooner or later. I mean, Idiocy is right there in the show. We only have so many.
We had 146.
We've been working this one trick pony for 146 episodes. Eventually, it's just going to die in the middle of the desert. So feel free to send all of those thoughts and ideas to Tim at freerangeidiocy.com. He'll get back to you forthwith, if not sooner. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for me to stop flapping my gums and to hand this over to the less idiotic of the two idiots who run this show. Ladies and gentlemen, the first question question ever, but not before asking the second most important question of all human history. The first, of course, being, what is hip? The second being, what in the hell did we learn this episode?
We have learned the following, my friend.
Good.
We have learned that even though we've had a bit of a sabbatical from putting out some content, the Man They Call Tim's team is suffering in a purgatory that is only unleashed upon by Uncle Todd in terms of staying 500 even Steven all the way. And given how the scores are shaping up for tonight, it is going to be 5-1 going into tomorrow morning. But I remain hopeful that my team will rise above 500 and, tell Uncle Todd, no, we will do better.
You remember in Aladdin, the original animated version, the good version,
yes.
When, at the very end, it's like, Jafar, he's our man. If he can't do it, God! That's how I feel when you start talking about your team. Just, we're going to get back to 500. Like, yeah.
We are going to rise above and be above
rise above
status quo. We are excited for both Mando and Dune 2.
Rise above my ass. Where you going to rise above?
That could have been anyone's ass. We are excited and bullish.
Did you see how
Dune.
the left cheek was slightly bigger than the right cheek?
I don't know.
That's
you were
because
paying more attention.
That's because he likes to lean that way, so that cheek has developed more musculature.
Oh, God. Now you're just developing a narrative about this.
What you got to do is you got to find someone who's left-footed or someone who has an injury to their right and they're compensating with their left, which would be the Man Called Tim. Because I remember after that rock bottom, he landed on his right side. Therefore, he's favoring that side, Your Honor. That was the Man They Called Tim who urinated on Mrs. Fitzpatrick's Shih Tzu.
Are you done?
Yeah, just about.
All right. We have also learned that Uncle Todd and Man They Called Him are bullish on Dune 2 coming March 2024 and Mando Season 4, which is coming at some point in 2025, apparently. We have also learned that Man They Called Tim and Uncle Todd will remain to agree, will agree to disagree on Loki Season 2 and how it ended. Man They Called Him is satisfied with the ending, and Uncle Todd, we have learned, is left wanting, which he does not like to be left.
Yeah.
Ira. All right. And finally, we have learned that in this contest, even though Uncle Todd was victorious in Ahsoka, it is the Man They Called Him this time around with the victorious victory, glorious in all, and not burdened by purpose in any way, shape, or form.
I declare shenanigans.
Another bottle of Bourbon.
Why not? You only had half a bottle tonight.
I did. I had half a... Well, it's kind of a mini bottle, if you will.
You might as well put a straw in that sumbitch.
Well, why not?
It's literally that Steve Austin. I'm going to have a beer. Gonna have another beer. 3 beers. 4 beers. 5 beers.
Just give me a straw, son. Little snug. All right. With all that being said, we thank you as always for the listenership, and as we like to close things out here on the range, be safe, be healthy, be kind, be good to one another, and well, you can't go home, or you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Yeah. Uncle Todd's almost fallen over, not because a spider has fallen from the ceiling, but because
you can't go home, but what you can do is you can poop your pants in the back seat of your car.
But Bill Mooney, Bill Mooney. Oh, but we thank you again, and the range, ladies and gentlemen, is.
I love how
closed.
when you mess that up, you're like, I'm just gonna back up and try again. Like nobody's gonna notice.
That's right. Just thank the peoples for listening. We appreciate it. I'm showing some appreciation, sir.
I'd like to thank you all as I'm sitting here in a puddle of my own urine.
And Mrs. Fitzpatrick's Shih Tzu.
I sat on him. I was wondering why my seat was so lumpy.
Oh, my God.
It's like I picked the wrong week to quit drinking.
I beg your pardon, what did you say?
You're such a disappointing pair. I prayed so hard for you.
I think
think you've had about enough?
Well, I think you're wrong, you increasingly attractive-looking woman. You know, you're really pretty.
Oh, stop.
No, I'm serious. You could be in magazines. You could. You can, and not just like Jugs or Creamsicle. Call me. She won't call.
Get out. And don't come back until you've redeemed yourselves.
Oh, here's a pleasant sight. Cirrhosis the Wonder Dog.
I'm not drunk, all right? I just have a speech impediment. And a stomach virus. And an inner ear infection.
Hey, where's Patrick lately? We haven't heard from Patrick in a while.
I don't have him down here in the basement, that's for sure.
Okay, well, I didn't know if he was, putting in some extra hours in the, the family basement. Who knows?
See, now the cure, the secret to identifying the ass cheeks is not in the musculature. It's actually the movement.
Oh, God.
It's individual, like a fingerprint. Some people, they kind of move to the outside, and others inside, and then others, they vary in out.
Ladies and gentlemen, when your Uncle Todd complained about it getting late, just know that it is he who is dragging this sumbitch out.
I'm just trying to, help.
We do appreciate it. It is entertaining.
Now get the hell out of here!